Hello, everybody. Peter Gantner here, back again with the Web3 Chase. I am excited today for this interview that we're going to be doing. This is our second interview. This interview is with Geoff McCabe from LightningWorks. Now, I've known Geoff for just under 3 years. However, my business partner, Jan, has known him for more than 20 years. So this is a long established relationship. We're excited about what Geoff has been doing in blockchain, and we're going to get into that today. Hey, Geoff, how are you?
I'm very good. I'm here in Costa Rica and San Jose in the capital city, and I love doing
Excellent.
interviews, so this is exciting.
So real quick, Geoff, before we jump into questions about LightningWorks, why don't you give us a brief history on what got you into blockchain crypto? What was that moment that said, wow, this is pretty cool? And can you give us a little bit of history on you in the blockchain crypto Web3?
Yeah, I have a master's degree in physics. A lot of people don't know that. And so I've always been a tech nerd. I was the president of the computer club in high school, and our computer team did number 5 in the country. I was one of the leaders on the team. So I've been heavily involved with software development my whole life, and a super nerd, right? So I actually quit physics and started a business where I opened a factory in China. I ended up with 30 retail stores. I had offices
Wow.
and sales agents all over the country, all over the world, really, and spent a lot of time designing products. And then I moved to Costa Rica at some point after I sold that business, and I opened up a yoga center, founded an eco village, started a real estate company. I've done all these different things, right? But I've always stayed with my fingers in technology, and I've always loved tech. I always wanted to have a tech company. And so when I started hearing about Bitcoin, I was paying a lot of attention. And in 2014, when a friend of mine came down, he was an artist, and he started telling me about Bitcoin. You should buy it. And so I ended up buying some in 2014. And I was really amazed by like how difficult it was to use and how scared I was through the whole process. It was just like so difficult. And so I was like, why doesn't somebody make this easier? So a friend of mine who lived in Costa Rica in 2017 said, hey, my friends and I, we want to start a cryptocurrency. We don't know what it's going to be, but we're talking about ideas. We'd love to have you involved. We need a CEO. And I had all this business experience and good credentials with several multi-million dollar successful companies. So they talked me into it. So I joined. So we did an ICO in 2017. But immediately I was like, okay, if I'm doing this, I already know what I want it to be. I want to do a cryptocurrency that's focused on making crypto easy and accessible, because my experience for the last 3 years dealing with Ethereum and Ripple and Bitcoin were the ones that I bought were just like a nightmare of fear. Every time you hit the send button, I was like, ever going to go through this kind of thing? And I couldn't tell the difference between private keys and public keys. It was just so confusing. So I basically wanted to make a much better system. And so that's what we did. We launched Divi in 2017. We did an ICO, and it was very successful. We were the number 8 biggest ICO of the sort of end of the 2017 ICO era. And we ended up launching our own blockchain in 2018. And we ended up in this humongous deal we did with La Liga, the football league.
Right.
And so it turned into really quite a big thing. And because of all these sort of huge things that happened, I got to meet so many of the famous people in crypto. I know all kinds of amazing people that are from the Satoshi Nakamoto group that was developing Bitcoin. And I'm friends with many of the top famous people in crypto space, and they've all watched what I've done, and they've seen all this. So a few years ago, I decided to do LightningWorks, and we actually hired the head of Namecoin. There was the lead developer of Namecoin. His name is Daniel Kraft, and Namecoin, as you may know, created the world's first NFTs. So I was talking with him about NFTs in 2017 before they were called NFTs, right? When CryptoKitties came along in 2017 and like nearly destroyed our ICO because it wrecked the Ethereum network, I was really pissed off about it. But I also thought, wow,
So,
these
Geoff, when you
CryptoKitties are
talk about wrecking the Ethereum network, it was transactions, right? It drove up the transaction price at the time because
yeah.
of the narrow bandwidth that the transactions per second that the network is able to handle, especially at that time.
Exactly. And it made Ethereum almost unusable, and especially not enough transactions per block. The gas was too high, and it was really affecting things. But I saw the potential, because at that same time, I remember reading an article like on this. What happened was basically on the same day that this was happening with CryptoKitties, and I was starting to realize that this non fungible technology could be used to do graphics there was an article about how Marvel and DC were talking about not printing comics anymore because they were losing money. So I basically put the two things together that I was reading. I was like, blockchain actually solves a really cool problem. And at that time, I was very enamored with the Lightning Network, and we wanted to bring the Lightning Network to Divi. And I was like, I want a really cool use case for Lightning, where you could basically buy comics, make them scarce on the network, and then you could pay with microtransactions. You could pay by page. Then you get halfway through the comic, you have to decide you want to continue and buy the whole thing, or you can abandon it. And that was like my idea. So that's why I called LightningWorks, because I was thinking of doing it on a Lightning Network. And we ended up not doing it because I didn't really trust that the Lightning Network was going to be ready for prime time, although they were claiming this is in 2017.
Right.
I've
This
been
was
looking.
6 years ago,
And it's
right? It's
still
almost
not
7 years.
ready. It's still not ready. I mean, it's
It
7 years
was a
later.
lot
It's still
rougher
not
then.
quite ready.
It's made some improvements, right? With
Yeah, it's made a lot of improvements.
ERC20, that type of stuff coming
Yeah.
along. So, Geoff, you mentioned something which I believe it's the most untalked about part of crypto, which is really microtransactions, right? That's
Mhm.
what actually got me excited about crypto in the first place was microtransactions. All of a sudden, and then of course smart contracts allowing for instant payment. So 20 people could get together, work on a project. Somebody could spend 2 or 3 cents, 5 cents, 10 cents, and get that across. And that has been what Bitcoin and Ethereum has not been able to do. But networks that are coming up, what you guys are working
Right.
on in Divi and some of the other ones, will be able to do these transactions at 100th of a penny or 1,000th of a penny and make that entire thing possible.
Right. That makes a lot of sense. I just had a meeting yesterday with CoreDAO. Have you heard of CoreDAO?
Yeah, you were
It's
actually the one that told me about it, and I've looked into it, and I'm
yeah.
pretty excited about what they're doing.
Yeah, it's one of these things that's a pretty secretive project. Most people I've talked to don't know about it, and yet they have 2 million real authentic fans. They were telling me yesterday that their AMAs get like 11,000, 12,000
Holy
people.
mackerel! Wow.
Very big, right? But it's mostly in Asia, and it's just not that popular in the United States because I think a lot of the founding team is there. It's very secretive, but I know that it must be good because the head of business development and the head of games from Binance both quit Binance to join it. And so they've got some really incredible stuff going on in the background, and they really love what we're doing with comics. And so we were working out yesterday a deal for how we're going to work together. And they have basically have combined the best elements of Bitcoin and Ethereum with a new consensus mechanism, and it's like massively scalable, right? And that's what we want because we want to be able to give away millions and millions of comics. The cool thing about comics and manga is that it's actually probably the world's biggest entertainment industry. I was looking at a list of the top things. I thought football would be bigger
Uh-huh.
than manga and anime, but it turns out anime has more fans than even football. It's probably the biggest in the world. Like it's so big. And the comics and manga put together, when you add up the value of the IP that's created, meaning the value of the characters and the story, Marvel cinematic universe and all this stuff. And Marvel's not even in the top 5. There's much bigger ones. Like
Isn't that
Winnie the Pooh
amazing?
is
So
bigger than
living in the
Winnie the
US,
Pooh is
I'm
bigger than
thinking
Marvel.
Marvel's one of the biggest comic book companies in the world. But to be honest
Yeah.
with you, not too long ago, they did the live action of One Piece. I'm thinking, oh, this is a
Yeah.
new show. My son comes over, he goes, Dad, I've been watching this for years. I'm like, what do
Oh
you
yeah.
mean? He
And
goes, Dad, they have 1,000 episodes out there, right? It's like
One Piece is
it's
worth tens of billions, more than Marvel, and it's just one of many different manga sort of anime series. And there's other things like that. Hello Kitty. A lot of there's the value in sort of cartoon-based characters is like $1 trillion. It's a humongous industry. And what's really amazing about it is that, and I just don't understand why this is off the radar of the crypto and blockchain scene yet, is that in the blockchain space, we're like desperate to find a real use case, right? People
right.
have tried to make like
Right.
Uber of blockchain, Airbnb of blockchain, you name it, they stick it on a blockchain. None of it's really made a lot of sense. And we were talking earlier before the show how it's still like a casino. That's what it really is. People and the real use cases are really not there yet. Bitcoin is a store of value, I think is a really good, solid use case. But so many other things, people have not found a way to make it work. But the reality is that $1 trillion worth of cartoon characters in many
Right.
different forms is going to migrate to the blockchain at some point because it solves a real problem for the publishing industry. It's very expensive to put all this stuff onto paper try to distribute around the world and try to distribute into different languages. There are 200 different languages or more in the world, but even Marvel, as big as they are, only prints in, I think, 11 or 12 at most. That's the most they've ever printed. So they just
Right.
don't reach all these markets. The technology we've developed, our pages and our comics are not JPEGs. They're not just a series of JPEGs. They are HTML5. So every page is a website, and we can dynamically translate. Like, we're actually literally building yesterday and today. We're basically creating the specs where on the fly, the words in the word bubbles will go through ChatGPT, and we'll basically on the fly put in any of 200 languages into the comics.
That's amazing. So publishing for everyone, right? That's
Yeah,
LightningWorks is
we can
on the
publish
main side of
in
it. It's
Swahili.
publishing for everybody.
Yeah, we'll be able to publish in Swahili or Hopi or something. There can maybe 12,000 people in the world that speak Hopi. They'll be able to read our comics and the comics of our customers, of Marvel or whoever becomes our customer in the future, in their native language. And there's just so many cool things you can do with that, because then you can start create, because of blockchain technology, you can see who's reading which languages, and then you can help people connect as a community. And that's what young people really want these days. They want to find authentic communities around the world that love the same stuff that they love. People that love One Piece love to talk to other people that love One Piece.
Right.
And that's like the missing connection with blockchain. In Web3 right now, people don't know who their customers are. It's funny, when I talk to other founders, I ask them, like, how many customers do you have? How do you contact them? And everybody has the same problem, right? They post stuff on Twitter, they post stuff on Discord, but nobody
Yes.
sees it. And people are not using
That's
email.
right.
And so we've actually solved all that, because not only solve the problems for digital publishing, but we put all the digital publishing in a wallet that exists in multiple chat apps. So you can have your comics in Telegram, in WhatsApp, in Discord, using the technology we've developed, which means that we can get people in chat apps where they actually pay attention to the messages they're getting. So, for example, if we have a bunch of fans that like a certain comic that we're developing, they're all in the chat app already. So if we send them a message, they're all going to see it. As long as we're not spamming them with crap, and we're just offering them stuff, airdrops, and all this cool technology that comes with Web3, we have this really easy way to develop the type of communities that people are looking to be part of.
So Geoff, let's do this real quick. LightningWorks is not just, hey, I'm into blockchain, I want to put comics on there. There are absolute benefits to enhancing. Let's say I'm a comic book collector. As a comic book collector, physical, the blockchain can bring real value in increased engagement, that type of stuff. So let's put forward a list of all the enhancements that digital comic books, the blockchain, Web3, LightningWorks brings to people that are fans of comics.
Okay, so there's so many benefits. When you talk to people about how you're supposed to present this, you're like, just pick the top three, but there's really 10, right? The obvious one, I mentioned the one about the languages already, but
Language. Yep.
there's another one that I call the Game of Thrones problem. The writers of really good stories want to tell stories like Game of Thrones. They want there to be sex, they want there to be violence, they want to write their villains truly villainous. They need to be sociopathic, evil people that treat people like they're going to torture people when they get them. But at the same time, if you tell a story like that, you can't have kids watching that, and then you can't sell action figures. And all the money comes from not the selling of the comics or not the viewing of the show, but all the merchandise that you sell, all that extra stuff, all the licensing of the IP. But if you go into Toys R Us or whatever toy stores people have now, you don't see like a bunch of Star Wars stuff of Game of Thrones there, because parents shouldn't be letting their kids watch Game of
Right.
Thrones.
Right.
But because we built our pages with HTML5, we have what's called content layers. So we can have NC-17 type of full frontal nudity in the comic book story, with bad language, with all kinds of stuff, where villains are acting like villains and people are acting like human beings do with their love lives. That's the kind of stuff that the best creators want to be able to write. But at the same time, parents will have the ability to say, okay, I want my kids to only be able to watch the PG-13 version, because if you click that button, we can let the parents control what the kids are watching, then there will be extra layers. And of clothing, or entirely different pages if we need to, if something's particularly violent and people don't want their kids to see that. So we can basically make it so that the studios can have their cake and eat it too, right? Because they can get the best creators to tell really great stories where anything can happen, where we have the full range of human experience, but at the same time, they can have their action figures and all the toys and all this stuff because the kids can watch the same stories. And this is such an important factor and big problem for all these types of sort of sci-fi movies and stuff. There's always this fight between the creators and the writers and the studios who are like, oh, we can't do an R-rated movie because then the kids won't watch it, so we can't sell them the t-shirts and the lunch boxes with the characters on it. And so you're going to have to take out all that stuff and make it PG-13. And there's this battle, right? So
I think the
so we
idea
basically
here is
offer,
choice, right? So
yeah,
people can make the choice of what type of content they're going to view or their kids are going to view.
yeah,
Even as an adult, if you're interested in a story, but maybe you don't want the deepest layer, I can then go in and set it with my preferences. And I'm going to see the story in the way that
yeah,
I feel comfortable with seeing that story. I think
yeah.
that's an
And we can,
amazing part that shows the technology of blockchain, crypto, Web3 that just can't be done any other way that I know of, at least.
there's also a problem globally, right? If you're trying to reach global markets and you want to tell a story in a certain way, India may decide that we don't want this, or maybe Saudi Arabia or one of these countries. We don't want our people seeing this kind of stuff. We don't want this language. We don't like the way this is presented. Can you create a version that's for us? That's really complicated to do with paper, but it's fairly easy
Right.
for us because we just add content layers that change the story or change some details. And that way we can basically then, based on what country and the cultural requirements, basically we have the option for that. And that's going to be a humongous problem for metaverses. And one of the reasons why trying to create a global metaverse can be really difficult, because what we consider appropriate in the United States is going to be very different from what's considered to be appropriate in China or Saudi Arabia. But anyway, you
Well,
get
and
the
with
point.
7
So,
billion people on the
and I mentioned,
planet, building a global brand, what would that be worth? And
so,
if digital allows
right.
that to happen, the blockchain and that type of stuff, because the problem is if you just do digital on the
Yeah.
internet, you'd lose control of it, right? The blockchain layer is what helps you continue to control and keep the IP to be able to monetize it. That's where I see it, right? Because there's
Yeah.
digital and then there's digital on the blockchain. And the blockchain is the security aspect that allows me, the creator of it, let's say, to be able to monetize it and to keep those strict controls in place, if
Yeah,
that's what's
that's
next.
right. And so another aspect that we're doing that I think is really valuable is the printing technology is so cheap. Let's talk about CoreDAO again. If you can print an NFT for like less than a tenth of a penny, which you can on CoreDAO, then basically you can give away for free your content. And what we've learned from many of these different projects like Marvel and DC, they keep doing comics even though they lose money. That's what they claim anyway, because the value of the IP is so
Right.
valuable. So what they want is to get these stories out into the universe so they have fans, so those fans watch the movies and then buy the merchandise and get the coffee cups with the Spider-Man on it and all this kind of stuff. That's where they make all their money, is all these companies have the IP that they license, right? So what we've been talking in our team, what if we just gave away all our comics? And we're going to do this. We're going to give away 1 million of our comics at some
Wow.
point just to get 1 million users in, so that you can reach critical mass of having enough fans. What we're hoping is
And
that if we give away 1 million comics, we get 1 million people that learn about our stories and characters. If just 1% of them become real fans, that's still 10,000 people that are like hardcore
so,
fans that
Geoff,
are.
is that available now? Because what we'd like to do is if we could put a link down below where people can go
Mhm.
engage with
Yeah,
LightningWorks, right?
we're giving away our first comic right now, which is the first NFT comic book in history. It's called Siege World Zero. We can provide you a link with it, and then people can just go and get it. And you can get it in WhatsApp, or we can send one to you. And if you want to use MetaMask, there's a few different ways to get it. And what we found too is that people, they get one for free and then they want more because they want to forge more. There's a whole unveiling
So
process
that is
that we go
that's
through.
another, right? This is like number 4, right? Forging. Let's cover that real quick on what you guys
Yeah.
are doing with forging and characters. Because earlier we mentioned about people being able to engage with the characters more. Let's go through that forging aspect of the NFTs and the technology.
Yeah. So one of the problems with the NFT space, crypto was crushed during the bear market, but not like NFTs. And NFTs were completely obliterated. At least with crypto, it's still worth something, but so many NFTs went to zero, and people just don't even want to hear about NFTs anymore. They're just not even interested. So a lot of the reason was is because you have this problem of not really having real scarcity, and you have no way to get enough fans to prop it up. So let's imagine like Bored Apes, right? You sell 10,000 of something, they're worth a lot of money, but you don't have this sort of base model of the millions of people that are excited about your IP. They want to participate in your metaverse. To have a fully functioning metaverse, you got to have between 5 to 10,000 people at all times in there. That's what you need, as you know from other verse, right? Ryan Schuss
Yeah.
told us, 5 to 10,000 people, 24 hours a day, if you want to have a real metaverse, or else you just don't have a critical mass of users. You have the same problem with Bored Apes, right? So you don't have any way to get the millions of fans to get in. Like Bored Apes, what they need is something that people can get in for $10, but then they can work their way up to get the
Geoff,
$10,000, $100,000 thing, right?
absolutely. So that's the key, right? I hear that a Bored Ape is $300,000. I can't afford $300,000. I'm not going to
Yeah,
pay attention to it, right?
exactly.
You're absolutely correct. And a matter of fact, if we take this back to baseball cards or any type of collectible cards, when they make them, they make gazillions of cards, lots of packs, and then within those packs are rare cards. So now everybody can enjoy and get some of the cards with the possibility of getting the rare ones. And so that's what
Right.
forging, right? It allows me to
Yeah.
take
So
characters, combine
so
them
the way
together, and create more rare ones, correct?
Yeah, so in our case, when you get a comic, so hopefully everybody that's listening to this will go and get a free comic and experience it for themselves. You basically get one of 5 tiers. They're named common, uncommon, rare, epic, and legendary. Each one has a color associated with it that's kind of part of our brand that you'll learn over time. So you have one of 5 tiers that you can get. Now we actually have 4 more tiers that are above that you can only get through forging. We have divine, mystic, rainbow, and apocalyptic. So people get in, everybody wants the apocalyptic, but you can only get one by either buying it on the market or forging it by getting lucky by forging something that's a lower tier. So the way it works is if you have 2 commons, you can forge them. The system will take the lower mint number and it burns the top one, and it basically recreates the lower mint number with a higher tier. And you can basically go up to 5 tiers higher. So if you forge 2 tier 1s, which are common, you now have the ability to get a tier 6. And or if you forge 2 tier 4s, you can get all the way up to 9, which is apocalyptic. So what people do is they buy a bunch, they try to get 2 epics, which are the tier 4, and that's now when they've got this sort of 3% chance to get the apocalyptic. So what we find is people are buying blocks of 20 at a time of these comics,
Right.
and then they're forging them all. So what's that doing? Well, it's reducing supply by a lot. So we found that already a third of our entire supply that we've minted has already been disappeared. And we haven't done a lot of marketing, and we haven't done really push because we're just still inventing the technology, but just a handful of people like forged away a third of the entire supply. And it was probably like less than 20 people. They obliterated a third of the entire supply. And they were buying blocks of 20. And what's also really important is they buy up the floor. So people, we were giving away all these comics. Okay, this is a very interesting thing. We gave away 1,500 comics at one point, mostly to people that got them just so they could sell them. And immediately they were just getting these free comics and then dumping them. Even though we were selling for $5 and we were giving away all these, people were like dumping them all the way down to $1. But all of our super fans were buying, 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 buying. And it didn't take long. It was only a day before the price was already up. In fact, people were so like excited about it is they bought the price up to $6, even though we were selling them for 5. From but people just weren't even paying attention. They're just like grabbing them.
That's an
You just
interesting thing here with bringing blockchain forward is comic book fans that love comics are rabid fans, right? They're really
right,
engaged with this. And that's what we need in the crypto space, right? We need to find these things. So gaming is going to be one of them. And I know Divi's working on some game stuff. Comic books, I believe, is going to be another area where blockchain can go to that next level because the fans of a comic book, they realize all these enhancements of digital on the blockchain over just, a printed published one, physical one, that they're going to be able to experience better what they're really into. And of course, like you said, connect with community
Right.
people, other people from around the world that are into that same genre or characters or into that same comics.
Yeah. So what we've really done is recreate the entire NFT collecting experience, right? In the old days, which is Bored Apes and everybody but us, you would just buy an NFT and then you look at it on OpenSea and then you just sit there and you hope that the founders are going to do something to make the price go up. And generally it
Right.
doesn't, right? And there's no other story behind it. Stories are really important. So you've got a founder story that people pay attention to. That's very important. But there's also the price going up story. What's going to make the price go up? And are the founders doing anything? Is there an excited community? Or all this adds up to the price going up? If the price doesn't go up, then people just get really bored with the story or upset with the story and it destroys the whole brand. And so people just abandon it. They start selling them when the price goes down. And it's very hard to recover from that. And there's just not much fun to that. So I realized at some point that if we made these cheap, people would instead buy blocks of them the same way people buy packs of magic cards. Like I used to go with my ex-wife and we liked to play the game, but the fun was actually opening up the packs and looking through them all and seeing what you get and spreading them all out on the floor and organizing them and putting your decks together and this kind of stuff. This is like, I haven't even played the game yet, right? You're already having all this fun, especially the opening. You feel like a junkie sometimes with these things. Like, oh, like literally, we would go to the comic book store and buy a stack of Magic card packs. We would go to the car and open them up in the car, even before we got home. Like, we didn't want to wait. So I realized that if people are willing to pay $100 for an NFT, why not sell them like 20 packs for $5? Where they can have all this fun opening them all up. And so what we did was
Right.
we devised a process of a set of reveals. So you basically get the comic book, you don't know what you have yet. You don't, we call it package. You unpackage it, and now you get to see what tier you got. It's one of the 5 tiers, and you can sell it that way. You can give it, like if you're a dad and you want to give a comic to one of your kids, you could give them a legendary, but they don't know what the cover is yet. So you can give it to them like that, or you can sell it in the market as a legendary that's unrevealed. So there's a second set of reveals where you basically see what cover you got. And like with Siege World Zero, we have 6 different ultra rare covers that are like styled like 80s Marvel comics. That's only a 3% chance. Then we have a 97% chance of getting something else on the cover. And so basically the cover has 6 different characters. You never know which character you're going to get. And each character has different costumes, different hair colors, different eye colors, different weapons. And you never know how many characters are going to be on there. Every cover is different. You've got different tiers. You've got these ultra rare covers. It's very complicated, right? But collectors love that, and people are buying these and they're showing them, and so they go through this whole process of deciding which ones they want to keep because they might be valuable someday because they got an ultra rare, or maybe they got one where
Right.
one of the main characters, it's really rare to get her without her signature cowboy hat for Bonnie Oakley, one of our characters. Super rare, right? So people, they want to keep that. The ones they don't want to keep, they go now to the forging section and they start combining pairs. They put 2 commons together, they put 2 uncommons together, and they work their way up. And they're like, oh, I only have 1 epic, I need another one. So they'll go buy 3 more to try to get, like add up in their mind what they need to get 2 epics. So then they can try to get a lot apocalyptic.
The neat thing
Yeah.
about it is, let's say I buy some, I don't get to forge them all together, but I'm forging. Everybody else is forging. Oh, wait a minute. All of a sudden, my common is going up in price because the
Mm-hmm.
value of the top ones are, and there's less of the common. So it really is not just, hey, here's all the common cards and they're always going to be cheap. This can actually raise the price of the higher end collectibles and raise the price of the common cards. Brilliant.
Yeah, and so because it's blockchain, right, you can do things like, okay, in 1 week, we're going to have a contest. Whoever has a Bonnie Oakley with no hat has a chance of getting an airdrop of a 1 of 1, right? So then you have this market frenzy of people going and trying to get all of those and collect those so they can win the free thing, right? And anybody can do that, right? Like eventually we see people getting fan clubs about Bonnie, but you can only be in the club if you have the Bonnie with
Right.
blonde hair, like the Bored Apes, right? Have shown that people spontaneously form their own cultures and their own clubs based on what skin they have or what weapon or something like this, right? And anybody can do that. And you have super fans that start to create their own use cases for your stuff and their own clubs, right? So what we've done to make that more interesting is that we have our own video game. It's called Siege World. So it's actually a 3D shooter. And so we can create use cases for specific types of comic book ownership. So if you have a Siege Worlds of a certain tier, then you can enter a VIP section, or you get more coin drops or some other cool things, or you can play certain characters. It just goes on and on, all the cool stuff you can do if you've built your NFT ecosystem the right way in the first place. And it's so compelling and so great what we've done, like seriously, that I'm sure that the whole NFT space will adopt it once they just hear about it. But we're doing our own thing. Bored Ape doesn't know about it. But I think when they see it in action, we've really proved already like how compelling and addicting this whole multiple reveals plus forging ecosystem is. And it just allows us to get in, like what we're talking about with CoreDAO is let's give away. They have access to like 12 million people. One of the things I asked them yesterday in the meeting was like, I'm going to talk to your smart contract people. Can we do a comic that we can give away 12 million in a single smart contract? Because I know that if we do that, then those 12 million comics will eventually become just a few thousand, because people will be
We'll start
forging.
forging and
Forging.
building and
Yeah.
growing and doing
And
all
there'll
the
be a
cool
frenzy.
stuff
There'll be
that's
this
there.
FOMO frenzy of people buying and wanting to collect the cool ones. And of course, if 12 million people know about your thing and know about your characters and they know about your story, that's already an IP that's worth tens of millions of dollars. So we can give away 12 million of something to create a value in a different way through the IP that's worth tens of millions of dollars, because you have this huge fan base. None of it really
Wow.
works unless you have a good story. And you have to have really good characters. You have to have really good stories. The dialogue has to be interesting. The characters have to be iconic, right? And there's all these rules or maybe recommendations about how to create iconic characters. And you'll notice that it's not easy, right? Marvel has failed in every single movie they've done this year, except Guardians of the Galaxy 3. It's just like bomb one after the other because they're not telling stories in the right way. Same thing with Star Wars, right? People just rag on Star Wars now because they're violating certain principles of storytelling that they shouldn't be. But this is coming down. This is people at the top, the suits at the top of these companies dictating to the writers and the
Sure.
directors what
Yeah.
to do. And if you've seen interviews with Luke Skywalker, with Mark Hamill, he was really pissed about what they made him do, and they killed off his character and made him act in ways that don't make sense. People hate that, and they have destroyed the Star Wars brand. All the fans
Well,
just
and
don't
that's
care
where
about it anymore.
decentralization comes in, right? That's a centralized entertainment industry. What we're
Mm-hmm.
talking about here is decentralized, where the people get to decide, the people get to be involved in that storytelling, which is another aspect, right? With
Well,
digital comic books, you can have the community through DAOs and through other
yeah.
mechanisms
So
help develop that story and put that together. Can we cover that real quick, Geoff? And
yeah.
then I have
So
one final question for you because I want to get your feelings
so
on
this is
the issue.
when we talked before all this, I forgot to mention this, and you just brought up like one of the most interesting things that we're doing. So we have a deal right now with Alien Worlds, which is the top gaming DApp. And so we're basically creating stories for them. We're going to release a comic probably on Monday is what we're shooting for. And we're only doing 10,000s, and we have all the forging and all the tiers and all this kind of stuff. So in my opinion, it's very low because if everybody does all the forging, there'll only be like 100 left. Basically, what we're doing with them, and their CMO, Kevin Rose, is a really smart guy, and he understood what I do. This is potential to do what we call tokenized lore. The idea is that how can you create a token where people can buy into the story? That token gives them the ability to help create the story, create the background lore of the story, maybe write their own comics or use AI to create comics based on that character, this kind of stuff, right? And then they get paid for it, right? But they're
Right.
also building up the universe and they're going out and now getting more fans. Now, you can't just allow people to do whatever they want. You have to have rules. You
Right.
have to have basically DAOs that help control what people can do, because a storytelling universe is not compelling and interesting if anything can happen. Right. So you
Right.
have to have a DAO of lore masters that know all the different things that's going on. So at Alien Worlds, they've actually built an AI chat GPT technology that can actually be the lore master, that you can submit a script and it can find the flaws that are breaking the rules, or it can act in the voice of characters to help you understand what could happen. And then you basically can have people that can help say, okay, look, this is your story script idea. It fits in the universe, or no, because 1, 2, 3, this would never happen, or violates the history. Nobody has time to read through all this
Right.
stuff, right? But people want to participate. They want to create stuff. And all these new AI apps are coming out. They're allowing people with new tools to create their own comics, create their own manga, create videos, even full-on movies that are going to be possible in just a few more years, right? So what
Absolutely. Yeah.
LightningWorks is really doing is providing the tools to make this possible. So we don't know what the tools are going to be. LightningWorks cannot compete with ChatGPT and OpenAI to create AI tools that allow the average person to create a Spider-Man video, which is going to be possible in a few years. But what we can do is provide for them a go-to-market strategy so that they can take their content, put it on the blockchain with tokens, and do it in the right way so that they can make money for it. And we can connect them using AIs to a global market. So one of my theories is that even if you have the weirdest idea in the world, but if you think it's really good, there's going to be at least 1 in 10,000 people out there that probably think it's as awesome as you do. And if
Right.
you can just target 8 billion people, 1 in 10,000 people is still millions of people that would
Oh,
buy your
you've
stuff.
got a multi-billion-dollar brand on your hands.
Yeah, exactly. And so if we can just solve that problem, so we're building all the tools for that. Like we already have it where you can go to straight into WhatsApp or Telegram, just type in mint to our bot, upload something, and it just mints it right on the blockchain, like instantly. And we've got an AI, actually, I don't know if you even know about this. I'll show you afterwards. You can go to, and it just creates comic books for you with our character, Xi Yang, or
Oh,
our lead
wow.
character. And you just tell the story. You give it a story sense. It writes the story, and then it creates all the art for you. And it's terrible right now, but it's still fun. And you can see, wow, like when this is good, anybody's going to be able to create a comic book. And what's interesting about that is we found that like when we show it mainly to men, they're like, oh, this is really cool. How does the tech work? And they want to try to get it to do stuff. When we show it to women, most women approach it very differently. They're like, oh, this is really cool. They actually are paying more attention to the story and wanting to see
Right.
what's going to happen next and stuff like that. It's really interesting to see how the different genders are like interacting with their technology. And this idea of making stuff, testing on markets and learning how, we never expected that because we're all guys that are building this. We didn't expect how women, or so many women, like the guy that actually built it is one of our team members. He actually told me, he said, I showed this to my mom who hates everything I ever make. And she was like, this is really cool. This is the coolest thing you've ever made. And she was like just going through the story and like creating the story and following along. This sort of customized story that was happening. And we just have our first generation right now, but it's already working. And so we
Well,
see
that's
what's
awesome.
coming. We see what's coming, but the average person, they can make cool stuff, but how are they going to get it to market? It's very difficult. So we need to provide that piece. That's what's really more important because somebody's going to make a better comic book manga creation app than we can do. Because you can spend billions and do something incredible, but people can make good stuff. Nobody's going to hear about it. So we need to
Right.
figure out a way for them to get on the blockchain. They can sell it to their friends with a credit card on chat apps, but it's still blockchain in the background. So we've already
Right.
provided all that piece. They want to be able to sell it in global markets. We give them a way to sell it on OpenSea, on all the big NFT markets, but they don't have to download those apps because our bot does it for them and just deposits the money in US dollars back in their bank account.
It is
It's, and
amazing
you talk,
what you guys are doing with LightningWorks. So I have two final questions. One is you've made it through because working with Divi through 2 bear markets. So a lot of
yeah,
the projects we cover are people that made it through the bear market because we believe that builds the strength, the integrity. It shows that the team's not going to quit. You've gone through 2 of them. Can you give just a little insight to the people watching? How hard is it to build in a bear market compared to a bull market? And as investors, right? Let's say I'm an investor in tokens. We say,
yeah.
oh my God, this bear market's been terrible. But on founders of companies, access to capital, interest in the project, all of that stuff. Can you cover that a little bit? And then I have one final question for you, and it's an important one.
Yeah, I don't really know anybody that has done what we've done. So many people have looked at Divi and they're like, Geoff, like you're the only person we know. We are the only crypto founder that I know that actually put their own money into the project. Usually people, they raise the money. That's what the token sale is for. You use it to the best of your ability. If it runs out, you're like, here, take it, community. That's your
Right.
problem. People will be like, I don't have the money to fund this thing myself with my own money. But Nick and I had our own money. We had our own sources. And this is like our baby. This is our legacy, right? It has to work. And I don't know, to me, it's like part of being a man. This is my thing. I'm going to make it work. I don't care. I'm going to do whatever it takes. So both Nick and I invested very large amounts of money, almost driving ourselves into personal bankruptcy to make all
Right.
this stuff work, because we believed in it for one, and we're investing in ourselves, but also we feel an obligation. Like all our friends, we have this community that's counting on us. Everybody in my family has Divi. Everybody in my family has LightningWorks, or like LightningWorks portal, which is one thing I do want to mention, because that's
Right.
like the real key to the whole LightningWorks ecosystem. If people are listening to this, they want to invest in something, the LightningWorks portals are only about $200 right now in OpenSea. We can give you a link right now if you want. And that would be a good way to invest in the future of LightningWorks and be able to participate.
Actually, that was my next question, right? Is there a
Mm.
token? How do we get involved? How does somebody participate? The innovations that you guys are doing are going to catch on, right? It's just an
Yeah.
improvement over what's there right now. So, with
Yeah.
that is opportunity and potential. Of course, I'm not a financial advisor, but what is that way? What does that look like? Explain the portals to us.
Well,
How do I
so
get involved in the success of LightningWorks outside of buying just the comic books?
yeah, you know what? Whenever we talk about stuff and recommend it to people, you have to be careful you don't step on a minefield by making it sound like, oh, invest in this, and then I promise the price is going to go up. But so let me explain how these work. So the LightningWorks portal was our Genesis mint. We literally launched it on the same day that FTX crashed. And so it ruined our launch. We actually delayed a few days, but when we still sold it out in 24 hours, and we started up $100 or $200 now in OpenSea. There's 6 or 7 of them at around that price, the last I checked. And basically what this does, it's definitely not a security, but what it does is it gives you sort of the key to the whole LightningWorks ecosystem. So we created it so that we could basically sell these to comic book stores who were not able to sell comics anymore. We wanted to give comic book stores a way to sell digital comics, get paid for it. So what we're doing is, imagine putting a computer monitor with all of our comics and all the comics of all of our partners into all the comic book stores. People can walk up, they can buy the comics, and the comics just drop right into their phone. They just scan a QR code, they pay with a credit card, and they get it. And it's all blockchain in the background, but you don't need to pay with crypto, and they get it instantly in a chat app, right? That they already have. So they don't have to
Right.
download the LightningWorks app. People do not want new apps on their phones, right? So we all know that, because none of us want new apps either. So basically, we created it for that reason. So if you buy a LightningWorks portal, you basically are getting the ability to buy all of our comics in the future at a discount. So those discounts going to
Okay.
range from like maybe 30% to 60%, depending on which tier. And there's 5 tiers from common to legendary. There's only one legendary right now. And there's, I think, 777 of these have been created. And there's tens of thousands of comic book stores. So we see at some point that the comic book stores are really going to want these, because there's only going to be so many. Now, although
Right.
there's 777 right now, ultimately there's going to be around 1,250, something like that, because over 7 years we're minting a few more, but there's way too little to go around. They're going to be very scarce, and it's not a security because you don't get paid automatically. You have to buy this stuff.
Yeah, I'm buying it. I'm putting it on a secondary market and reselling it to my customer or to
Yeah.
another fan. And that's where I'm
And so
getting the
so
difference in it.
exactly. So some people will buy these because they're super fans. They just want to get everything cheaper so they can forage and try to get the best of everything and sell the ones they don't want at full price. There's a lot of ways to make money with this, but you have to do the work. We're going to make that easy. We'll be providing tools where you can just do a plugin into WhatsApp, or you can even just launch a website with a button click that can help sell this, or you can just be part of our website and create your own space on our website with your own brand, with your own links, and sell your stuff. You can sign up basically subscribers that are just automatically buy every comic. For example, if you have a common, if we're launching something that is, say, we're minting 20,000 and you have a common, you may only get 3 or 4 that you're allowed to buy at a discounted price. Most of this will just be bought up by all our portal holders, and we'll have probably 50% to 2/3 of all the supply going through our portal holders. So there's a lot of good reasons to buy one of these portals. Just people don't know
Yeah.
about them yet. NFTs have been in the toilet ever since we launched. So I'd love to give you a link if people are excited about NFTs, stories. They just like me. They like the company. They trust you. That's a really good way to get in. It's not too expensive right now, and you can always sell it later. It's an NFT, right? So we can always sell
Right.
them later. So it's, I wouldn't call it an investment. It's a digital
No,
collectible.
it's a way to get involved in the project. And as the
Yeah.
project rises, the success of it, of course, anything that's attached to it should do some type of movement
Yeah.
up. We're not here to give financial advice,
Yeah.
but look at it. Look at the
And,
innovations that LightningWorks is doing. Look at
and
where the
one thing to keep,
future's going.
yeah,
Everything's going to digital, right? Metaverse is digital.
exactly.
I can
Everything is
be
going
my comic
digital.
book in a metaverse. All of that stuff is moving towards wanting to find projects like LightningWorks itself that you can get involved with early enough to where as the success of the technology and everything takes off, you can benefit from it. With that,
Yeah,
Geoff,
exactly.
this has been an
Mm,
amazing interview.
mm.
I think it's given a lot of information to people. So I want to thank you for joining us. And we're going to have you back because I know you said there was like 10 things. We went over
Oh
about four
yeah.
or five benefits. We'll do a second interview down the road and we'll get some updates. And maybe on the next one, you can bring us some alpha that nobody else knows about that we can share
Yeah.
with our fans here on the channel.
Yeah,
Again,
we can do
thank you
that.
so much for joining us. And this was an amazing interview.
Thank you.
All right. So, Geoff, you've offered to send a comic to every single person on here. And of course, we believe in ROVC, return on value created. So, is there something that we can do for LightningWorks? And then maybe LightningWorks can do a little bit more for us. So, that kind of quid pro quo. So, can you explain to us what people can do in order to get a second comic for free from LightningWorks?
Yeah, so what we're going to do is that you guys are going to provide a way for people to send their WhatsApp phone number to you. And then you're going to be able to go in and give them all a free comic with the system. Our staff then, once people get their first free comic, are going to go in and mint for everybody a second free comic. That way you have two chances to get something really special. You get to go through the process twice. And if you get two of the same tier, you'll be able to go through the forging process. And with the forging process, you can get something even higher. And so ideally, the way it would work is that you're going to get all your fans doing this, and then somewhere on your socials, perhaps posting what they got. Oh, I got this cover. This is really good. And
Right.
and if you let me know about it, then I can go in and I can also explain to people. I'm going to see. I know everything that's really valuable with the traits, so I can say, oh, you got the bunny with the pink hair. That's super rare. That's like a 6 tier trait or whatever. So I'll participate as well in telling people that they got something really special. We have an article online that people can read through, but it's more fun if I, as a founder, am
Sure, to
participating
engage as a
and people are
community, right?
learning
Community is
and talking
commerce.
about it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
community is commerce. So, guys, what
So
we're
we
going to
can make this
do
into a really sort of fun group reveal.
below in the description there's going to be a link to a Google Doc. If you want to participate and get two comics, okay, all you got to do is go fill that form out. We'll get that process started and we'll get you set up with two comics from LightningWorks. And of course, you can start to engage with the project and do your research and figure out how much you want to get involved with LightningWorks.